ladies and gentlemen. Today we're taking a look at an ongoing comic series courtesy of Dynamite Entertainment, the Invincible Red Sonja. This one is being written by Jimmy Palmiotti and Amanda Connor, with Justin Norman, aka Moritat, on the artwork. And it's one of the, I think, 2 or 3 different Red Sonja series that are currently out. They've put out a whole bunch with this character since they got the rights to it. That's one thing that's definitely for sure. This one in particular, though, I happen to like. So, for those who don't know, although if you're watching this show, I mean, you probably already do, but just in case it was just a random visit right now, Red Sonja was originally created by Robert E. Howard for a historical adventure story. She was a 16th century Ukrainian mercenary during the siege of Vienna by the Turks in the story The Shadow of the Vulture, written in 1934. In the 1970s, Roy Thomas adapted that story to the Conan the Barbarian comic in issue 23, changed things up to make it the Hyborian Age instead of, our world, changed Sonja's name so it was a J instead of a Y, and there you go, that's where it started. She made a great impression, had numerous return appearances, a bit of a costume change, as we all well know, before getting her own series. And since 2005, she's moved on from Marvel to Dynamite Entertainment, who have done a whole bunch of stuff with the character, centered to... She's teamed up with Archie. Let's just leave it at that. She and Vampirella have teamed up with Betty and Veronica. That is a real comic book. I'm not kidding. But we're not talking about that one. We're talking about the Invincible Red Sonja. So, as I said, this one's being done by Jimmy Palmiotti and Amanda Connor. Those two have worked together since 2013 when they did the Harley Quinn comic for DC Comics. Since then, they also got married, so they've been working together very closely since then. And in the past, Jimmy has also worked with the artist for this series, Moritat, on All-Star Western for DC. That was in 2011, as I recall. So these are people who have worked together previously on different projects, and you can really tell that with this series because the writing and the art very much gels together. There's no... How should I put this? There's no real discontinuity between the different sides of the comic. Everything is working together very, very well. Originally, this was supposed to be a 6-issue limited series, but since then, it's become an ongoing. And since the 7th issue just dropped this week, I feel it's a good time to take a look at the original 6 issues and see a bit where this comic has gone and give my thoughts on this. Naturally, it's continuing on from here, but I think it's given us a good baseline to, the level of quality we're dealing with here. So just starting as I usually do with the art, Justin Norman has done a really good job with this one. The artwork is very expressive in terms of the characters and in terms of the decor in many ways. There are certain areas where it can be a bit light on details depending on the situation. If you're going like a big splash image of a city or something like that, then generally speaking he goes into more detail, and in particular also when he goes for the main characters, when there's center page and stuff like that, then you can see a lot of work being done in the lines and facial expressions, stuff like that. One thing is definitely sure, he knows how to make Red look good. In fact, I could say the same about all the female characters throughout this entire series. All of them are, shall we say, very well drawn. Is that one way we could put it? Of course, for those who also enjoy a bit of the beefcake, you're well served in that regard too. There's a couple of characters who are equally well drawn, shall we say. I feel there's only about one major criticism I could say for the artwork. It's that the colors can be a little bit inconsistent in terms of their texturing. I think that falls a bit more on the colorist Matt Carter in certain ways. It's especially visible in issue 5 because, as I'll say when I get to the story part, this whole thing is being told a bit as a flashback up to a certain point, and that's the point where images from the first issue are brought back to reintroduce the situation as it continues from there. And you can tell that the coloring and the texturing on the first couple of pages is much more detailed and, a bit more effort went into it than the rest of the issue. However, that level of inconsistency, you don't really see it throughout the whole thing, and it's only particularly noticeable in that issue, I find, issue 5. The rest of the time, it's maybe a panel here or there that's not quite up to the same level as the rest of it, but it's one of those take it or leave it kind of things. Beyond that, really, the artwork looks great. And, okay, I have to bring up this point. Is there an unrated version of this comic? Because, seriously, I know it's rated 15 plus, so, you see some nudity, but there's nothing visible. But you gotta think somebody Because just from the way things are positioned and stuff like that, something was drawn over it, you gotta think somebody's hard drive's got an 18+ version of this comic. There's one panel in issue 6 that I'm like, okay, you are towing the line here. Although it does give the opportunity for some fun little innuendo. There's one bit in, which one is that? I think it's also in issue 5. One of the guys, the proverbial beefcake of the series, is getting changed, and there's a little statue of a cyclops blocking the view. So yeah, one-eyed giant. I see where you went there. So, naughty. But in any case, there's lots of little puns like that throughout the whole thing, so it makes me think they know what they're doing. Also, who knows what they're doing is Amanda Conner and Jimmy Palmiotti. They have done a really, really good job on the writing on this one. From listening to prior interviews and such, my understanding is Jimmy's mostly doing the plotting and storyline, where Amanda's doing the dialogue and characterization and stuff like that, and they're both in their respective roles of doing really, really stellar work. And it makes sense because they both worked on this character previously. Jimmy did in, what was it, 2005, he did Red Sonja One More Day with Justin Gray and Liam Sharp on the art for that one. That one's also really good. And of course, Amanda Conner is known for doing numerous Red Sonja covers throughout the entire series with Dynamite. She's done stellar work on that. She's doing also the covers on this series as well. So the thing about the plotting here is that it's a very, how should I put this? It's a very respectably standard sword and sorcery's tale, but in a good way, if that makes sense. It is very much a adventure tale. It's not, trying to be particularly subversive or parody or anything like that of the tropes of this kind of genre. It's very much the kind of thing that really throws back to the Roy Thomas days, the early Marvel Red Sonja days, where, she just go on adventures, encounter people, fight weird monsters, and go on from there. Although in this case, it does have the ongoing storyline that happens. The title of this story comes from the fact that as we enter the story, Sonja's been placed under a spell by some wizard. We don't get the full information yet from that comes later on, who was basically forcing her to defend him from the armies that are coming to take him out. And not only has he put her under his control and she has to do what he says, he's given her a healing factor that's on par with Wolverine, so she can handle that army coming at her. Unfortunately, she feels every blow of it, so it's not exactly a fun time for her. The story then, flashes back to how she got into the situation, and it's a story involving killer mermaids, political marriages, summoned lava demons, and all sorts of skullduggery involved. And really, really, it is paced extremely well. Every issue has something happening. There's a fight scene, there's some kind of plot development, someone's taking their clothes off. It is just great fun. That's what they're thinking about this. It's fun. It doesn't take itself too seriously, and it also doesn't take itself completely unseriously. It's right there, riding that line in between the two. And I think that works well for this kind of thing. The other thing that works well, I think, is also the dialogue, as I said, for Amanda Conner's side of it. And this is something I like quite a bit. One, it feels like that old school sword and sorcery dialogue. The kind of thing you hear from, the old Conan the Barbarian comics and stuff like that, Savage Sword Conan. I mean, in fact, I would honestly say that this comic would easily fit into like the second story in a series of Savage Sword of Conan issues. That's how, high I put this one. And one thing I like about it, this is something I brought up with Matt John when I did the interview with him, the guy from Rogues in the House podcast, it's that there are no modernisms or, F-bombs or anything like that throughout in. It's very much that kind of old school sword and sorcery dialogue that really feels of a period and really feels appropriate for this kind of character and this kind of story. And one thing I also like is the personality that they have for Red herself. Over the years, lots of different authors have had their takes on her, and this one I feel is very close to like her original portrayal in many ways. She's the kind of gal who's deadly serious in a fight, but she's also capable of just like, whooping it up and dancing on the tables with a mug of ale in one hand and a sword in the other. She's that kind of gal. And it also can get her into trouble at times, so it's very much like she's a fun character to see in action in this series. That's for damn sure. And the series itself, as it goes on, it really does, build things up higher and higher stakes as things goes on until, it just comes to a massive climax in the 6th issue that lives on a cliffhanger, which is now being resolved as the series becomes an ongoing. I will say about the writing, there's about only a couple of things I would use criticism for. In issue 4, there's a particular dream sequence where Sonja's confronted by the goddess who she made her vow to all those years ago, you know, the vow. And she's saying that she's not been paying attention to it and has been going against it. And it's like, there's nothing in this series so far that made me think that. I was a bit confused. I think maybe it's a reference to previous series or something like that. So that part was a bit confusing for me at the time. Not too important, but it's something to note. And I will admit, one of the villains in the 6th issue kind of goes out as a joke, which I think I would have gone for something with a bit more seriousness in that regard, because there's literally a panel where all the heroes are laughing about it in the moment as some serious shit's going down. So, okay, there's no problem there this one time playing it off as a joke, but let's not make a habit of it. You know what I mean? So in that case, that was pretty much the only major criticisms I have. Some of the coloring and like 2 minor story points in that regard. Otherwise, this is solid Sword and Sorcery Adventure comics. I am hoping this gets, you know, a good run to it, because I want to see where these people go with it. They work well together. The art looks great. Sonja looks damn great, let's face facts. I will cut around that. So yeah, the Invincible Red Sonja. This is available through your various, you know, online and brick and mortar retailers for comics, wherever you go get your comics. It's courtesy of Dynamite Entertainment, and I am looking forward to seeing where it goes. In any case, you can find more videos here, more comic reviews. I'm eventually going to get to the next of the Glenna Conan comics. Just, you know, give me time on that. And I will see you all next time. Like, share, subscribe, all that stuff. If you enjoy the video, you know what to do. Till next time, bye-bye.